Hello, everyone. I'm Miguel Andrade. I'm from Portugal. I had a very long trip here. So anyone here is not from San Diego? A lot of people, right? And not from California? What about not from the US? Wow, quite some people. How about from Portugal? Okay. Looks like there's an intruder here. So I'm Miguel Andrade. This is me like 20 pounds ago. Um, and yeah, good times, right? So you can find me on these handles and in social media. And I'd like to take a quick moment to thank Coach Logics. So I'm working with these guys now. They're this very promising startup, and they're pretty nice guys. So they're kind of like my stylish sponsors today. So yeah. So let's start by this very good logo. Anyone here used Leaflet? Okay, this will be interesting. So Leaflet is a mapping library. So you use it to do maps. Do not confuse with functional maps. I mean, really maps like with streets and stuff. So yeah, with this mapping library, you can. So it gives you a nice interface to use maps. And this talk is about. This talk is mostly a little story about what I call a successful hack. Like that's what Ember Leaflet, it's an add-on, ended up being. It's like a successful hack. So with Ember Leaflet, Leaflet, you have pretty much standard JavaScript API. So this is very simple stuff. You just create and configure a map. You pass in an ID there, which is the ID for the element you're rendering your map into. And you just call a setView function to configure the initial state of the map. So we're there passing some coordinates. That's Portland, by the way, and a zoom level. So next, we can. So this Leaflet has this concept of layers. You create a map, then you put layers on it. So we're basically conditionally creating a tile layer. So tile layer is the layer where your tiles are. So tiles are basically bitmaps, images, that essentially display the streets and the names and all sorts of things. There are lots of different kinds of tiles. And you need a tile server. There are lots of free ones available, not just Google Maps. Yeah, so we're conditionally creating a tile layer. If we are on night mode, we create a dark type of layers. If we're not, create a light type of layers. And then we're adding it to the previously created map. This is an important part. So next, you can imagine if we had a restaurants array coming from, I don't know, your API or something. And that array had some items in there and basically some objects with the latitude and longitude of the restaurant and the name of it. So we're here iterating the array, and for each item, we're creating a marker layer in the specific point of the restaurant and binding a pop-up with the name of the restaurant, and then adding again to the map. So this is pretty basic API for doing pretty simple stuff. A Leaflet allows you to do a lot more, like creating polygons and all sorts of stuff, lines, whatever. So, but this will do for today. So then I started wondering, like a thought experiment, like what if I could make this a little bit more interesting, like turn this imperative API into a declarative one, like we're used to in handlebars. So we could basically start by, so this maps one-to-one to the previous slide. So we create and configure the map. Okay, got it. We have a parent component that would be responsible for rendering the map. We pass in the same latitude and longitude and the zoom level. And then we have there we pass as a param block a layers hash, which we can use to render additional layers into the parent map. And here we have the same conditional rendering of tile layers. We have the same URLs, everything. So it should be very straightforward. Yeah, so these nested components, which are nested in leaflet map, if you notice, so they should be rendering the tile layers in that case. They should be adding it to the leaflet map as well. So here we're iterating the restaurants array again and creating a marker layer for each restaurant, and also creating a pop-up nested in marker. So we're on a third level here, and we're adding the pop-up. The pop-up should be bound to the parent marker. So yeah, this is cool, right? This is not bad. And this is one of those not bad moments. And I just started hacking. And then something like a that's funny moment came into me. And so what did we gain with this? Just like, I was trying to make sure this wasn't just a hack you could do, like, look, this is nice, and then throw it away. It doesn't mean anything, right? So we get data bindings for free, like we're used to. I mean, those were just components. You can, I mean, the zoom level, for instance, can come from anywhere you'd like. And at the end, it's just Ember components. We like them, right? Yeah, we do. So yeah, this is the first advantage I came up with, and so we basically update properties like we're used to, and we don't need to know any new API. We just need to know the properties that we need to update and that are bound. So the second is that, so Leaflet has this concept, you can see over there, concept of events, like when the user does something, or even when something happens that the user didn't make, like the map is ready. Leaflet has this concept of events. Well, it's pretty common in the JavaScript world, right? So we could map all these events, we could map to actions, and then, okay, it would be just regular Ember components, right, with actions, regular actions as well. And we could actually do some data down actions up with this. You can imagine the leaflet map component triggering up, so actions up, triggering up an update center action, and we then would update the sender property or the latitude and longitude property according to this action. So yeah, this is an attempt to make mapping like feel at home. You just feel at home with regular Ember components. Yeah, and the third advantage I came up with is it's just streamlined for Ember, right? You can use if helpers each. You can even outlet stuff. That's a pretty interesting concept. You can imagine routing and having pop-ups popping up or weird stuff. I don't know. I've never really tried that much with outlets, but there are some pretty neat things that we can do with this. And okay, you can also use regular Ember helpers and components. So you can format, let's say, a price of the restaurant, and that rating stars could be probably a component that renders the typical 5 stars graphic. So yeah, again, this is cool. So the problem with this was that it was not that easy to build this. It started as a hack, yes, but to be honest, along the way, I kind of felt like I was battling the framework or the platform, but so some problems appeared. And I packaged the solutions to those problems in this add-on. So you kind of see a pattern here, like all Ember talks talk about problems, and then you just say there's an add-on for that, and you install it, right? I think Ember, Tom Dale tweeted about it, and I start, yeah, that's really a thing. So Ember composability tools, we have Mike North there, has Ember composability add-on. The name was taken. So I had to append -tools. Yeah, there is some those add-ons overlap a little bit in one of the problems. If you know Ember composability, you probably know at least one of the problems I encounter. So let's start looking at them. Yeah, the first one was the lifecycle hook sorter. So the idea was I would compose these components and use the lifecycle hooks to actually trigger the leaflet creation process. So the components would be tagless and templateless. I don't want DOM. I want to just use the lifecycle hooks to trigger the correct logic to create the leaflet layer or map. So this is the idea. Okay, I'll just create the map in the did_insert element of leaflet map component. Then I'll just create the tile layer in the did_insert element hook of tile layer component, and so on and so forth. However, it didn't end up quite well because the lifecycle hook order is not what I expected. And after some code debugging adventure, like some would call, I ended up understanding a little bit of why this happens. But basically, Ember triggers the did_insert element hook from child to parent. So this ended up not being very useful for for the hack I was trying to do. So the first problem, this was the first problem I encountered. So what this add-on provides you is two mixins. You can add a parent mixin in your parent component. You add a child mixin in your child component. So, by the way, both mixins are compatible. You can be simultaneously a child and a parent. So this is like more or less a biology class here. But yeah, you can be that. You've seen marker layer is one of them because marker layer is a child to a leaflet map, but a parent to a pop-up. So that's one of the examples. So what this, as soon as you mix in those mix-ins, you get a new hook called did_insert parent. So I did insert parent mainly because I lacked a better name. I'm open to suggestions, but that hook assures you that, I assure you, there are tests to prove that that hook will only run when the parent hook did run. So this was very helpful for building this kind of add-ons like Ember Leaflet is. So originally, let me step a little bit back, but originally this wasn't extracted for Ember Leaflet. This was in Ember Leaflet core. But then I took some time to extract this and make it a general solution so anyone can benefit from this, from these solutions, and hopefully build these new kind of components for themselves. So yeah, this was the first problem. The second problem was which is, I believe, what Ember composability also addresses, is access to parent and children. So when you create a tile layer, for instance, you need to add the tile layer you just created. You need to add to the parent map instance. So you essentially, if you had the right mixins, the add-on gives you, if you add the child mixin, the add-on gives you a property called parent component you can access. So, and you can access the mapping instance in this case. You can see that we are creating the map instance in the did_insert parent hook, the new one. And in the tile layer implementation, we implement again did_insert parent because the mixin grants us that it will be ran after the map is created. So we just create the tile layer, access the parent component, and add it to its map instance. So the opposite of this is the parent mixin, which gives you a child components array you can access. So if in the case of Ember leaflet, this wasn't needed, but I can imagine all sorts of ideas that could need this. Imagine if you have like a parent carousel component, and nested in it, you had lots of slide components. So probably the parent component would need to know how many children it has. Or maybe if you're doing something fancier, like rendering a scene with WebGL, you want to each of the child components, you want it to represent a part of the rendering logic. So like if you add in, let's say, a teapot component, you want that teapot component to hold the logic of the 3D rendering of the teapot and not anything else. So hopefully the parent 3D scene component would call the child component's draw method, like in the example, and the child component would draw whatever it was meant to do. So yeah, this was the second problem. So the third problem is a little bit weird, I guess. It was just later discovered. Yeah, so the thing is, you're in leaflet land. Inside the leaflet map component, you shouldn't render any DOM there, because you can't possibly know unless, of course, you inspect the source code of the library, but you shouldn't render DOM in there. Leaflet might want to wipe it out for some reason. You don't know exactly how the library works, and that's not exactly what you want to do. So in this example, the Leaflet API down there requires us to pass in either an HTML string for the content of the pop-up or a DOM element. So what this add-on does, it takes the contents of the block of a component and renders it into a document fragment, not in the DOM. This uses some Ember wormhole trickery to do this. So thank you, Yap Labs, for doing it. We all love Ember wormhole, right? Yeah, so this has ended up being very useful because you can now use whatever components and helpers you want inside a block. That's just how Ember is supposed to work. We put stuff inside blocks, right? And it just works with a third-party library as well now. So yeah. So where we previously had Ember rendering DOM, we still render DOM, but the Ember just communicates with the Ember API, and Ember and with the Leaflet API, and Leaflet API ultimately renders DOM, but not directly properly. So yeah, I just want to make a quick demo since not many of you know Ember Leaflet. So this is what it looks like. This is the official webpage. Runs on Ember Leaflet runs on fastboot, by the way. And yeah, we can just take a quick example. So yeah, you can see here pretty interactive example of what a leaflet map looks like, an Ember leaflet map looks like. So this is all data bound, right? So if I drag this marker, I made this marker draggable. The polygon will update its coordinates because they are bound to the same data as the marker. Also, the condition. Remember the conditional tile layer creation? Yeah, it's here. I can show you the template for this. It's what you expect, right? Here's the restaurant's iteration. Wow. So yeah, and all of this is also bound in many other ways, like, for instance, this, right? So it's what you expect. Oh, there's a missing thing, and I think it's here. So yeah, pop-up opening state is also bound. So everything is bound all the way down. So this is what the successful hack looked like. And I mean successful because a lot of people have been using it. We have a Slack channel. That means we're good, right? So, and then I found interesting, like, pretty much like Ember Power Select and Ember CLI Deploy, a small community of add-ons came up. So Leaflet has a lot of plugins, and suddenly Ember Leaflet also had a lot of add-ons around it. So if you want a marker cluster, don't know if you know what that is. I can show you real quick. You just, do the usual stuff. Just Ember install Ember Leaflet marker cluster. Check this real world example. So this is a marker cluster. Yeah, so you get all of this. Okay, I promised outside that I would be saying here why I don't use Google Maps. I refuse to use it because Google Maps really, at least like some months ago, wasn't really made for single-page web apps. It doesn't have a tear-down method, for instance. So if you like travel to a different route, you were supposed to tear down the map, right? But Google Maps doesn't give you that yet, at least. You can find a pretty interesting 4-year-old thread on Google Groups about that. Well, if you don't have anything better to do, of course. So, yeah. So yeah, that was the demo. So we have this, right? That's how Ember Leaflet works. But then I started, and that was one of those funny moments. Oh, funny moments. It's like, what if you replace Leaflet for other things? Probably any other third-party library, but that ultimately renders DOM. But you can go even further, like extrapolate this approach, and what if it didn't render DOM at all? Like, right? You have, at the moment, browsers don't just render DOM. I know it probably seems very awkward for me to, oh, don't render DOM, and like so many people working on Glimmer 2 and making rendering DOM so good for us. Well, I still render a lot of DOM, but yeah, this is like a successful hack, like I mentioned. So I have this little proof of concept. I should probably go one slide further. Yeah, so this is basically an Ember app that renders WebGL. So we create the universe. Nice, right? We create the universe, and we outlet into the universe. Cool. Think of that for a moment. Then, if we go to Earth, to the Earth route, you create the planet Earth component. Of course, we need a dash there. Yeah, and I went ahead and just to show you the power of those solutions I came up with, we want to put some text beneath the planet Earth. So we use the block of the planet Earth to pass in that text. And of course, if we go to Mars route, we render planet Mars and so on and so forth. So I want live code because I did that already, and that usually turns out to not be very good, usually. I think I need to exit, okay. Okay. Let me just, oh, of course, this is also open source, if you want to take a look. I'm just Ember serving here. It takes a while. This is a Core 2 Duo MacBook from 2008. So yeah, it's done. Cool. Can go full screen again. Go to the typical URL. So here we are. You can see the universe here. I'm not sure if you can tell, but the universe is rotating. That's actually an Ember property that is changing, and the component reacts to that. So the render loop renders each time a different value of the Z rotation. I'm not exactly a WebGL expert. That's not the point, right? But yeah. So this is the what? Yeah, this is the application route of the universe. So then we can travel. These are normal link tos you can see here. So if you travel to different routes, each route has a different component. And because we use a little trick here that I believe it's about to get deprecated, unfortunately, which is the, how do you call it? Parent of type, what is it called? Nearest of type, yeah. So because the components are in different routes, you can't just create a contextual component and pass in the parent component instance across routes. So that's a problem that, if you guys know any way to overcome that, I don't really know. Fortunately, most of Ember leaflet templates are just in one route, so it's not a big deal. But I don't know, you might have some cool use case like this one to render across routes. So yeah, we have all these planets, and this thing here is what we passed into the block, right? So this is actual DOM inside 3GS. I've used 3GS here. So this is only possible because 3GS has this concept of renderers. The default one, you could say, is the WebGL renderer, but it also has a CSS3 renderer you can put on top of the WebGL renderer. So the instructions of the planet Earth component are, create this little sphere, put some texture in it, and also use the CSS3 renderer to put that text underneath. Also, oh, and by the way, yeah, I've also did this, like if it were like a navigational text, because it uses Ember wormhole, and you would want to use Ember wormhole in a solar system simulation, right? That's probably the only place it makes sense to use. Okay. Another thing to notice is that there are only 8 planets here. Get over it. So it was also a bit quicker to make the proof of concept. So quite nice, yeah. Okay, yeah, there's our wormhole there. It's just like an Easter egg for you. So yeah, these 2 examples, so one add-on and 1 proof of concept, that's what I made. But the idea here is to extrapolate this to a lot of other possibilities. For instance, maybe you've heard of React Canvas from Flipboard. From what I looked at their code base, it should be possible to make a one-to-one map to Ember using this. This was actually my first idea for a proof of concept, but I didn't really have the time to waste. I already do that a lot. Yeah, so this is one possible idea. So part of this talk is to like show you that you should explore, and sometimes successful hacks lead to new explorations. You never know, right? Maybe this is a new kind of component Ember core team should address because of one thing we'll see in a minute. So yeah, example 2 is like you could do a proper 3GS toolbox. I mean, this add-on wouldn't be, his main goal wouldn't be for end users to use probably, or maybe, but you can imagine like some primitives like object 3D there in the bottom. You could implement a cupcake component, and this implementation would be, so a cupcake, it's really nice, really declarative. What is a cupcake? It's an object 3D. It has the mesh of whatever meshes the material, and it has the following texture, following size, whatever. And then you would use the cupcake component inside a 3GS scene. And the 3GS scene declares which camera is the main camera. You could possibly declare multiple cameras. This is just an idea. Yeah, so the thing here is that you could be the next champion of a pretty cool add-on. So is there a catch? Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but in the title of this talk, there's a little asterisk. That's right. So fortunately, the catch isn't too bad. So this is the catch, right? You can't actually not render DOM with Ember components. Ember components, from my understanding, need always a bit of bookkeeping in the DOM, and they assume the form of comments, comment nodes, and probably text nodes as well. So even if you do a tagless, templateless component, it's like saying, no, I don't want DOM. You actually get this in a DOM. Most libraries like Leaflet or even WebGL, if WebGL gets rendered inside a canvas tag, they don't really care. Nothing cares about HTML comments, right? The thing is that this leads me to conclude that Ember might be doing something that it needn't to do, right? Is still accessing the DOM. It's still doing stuff that it couldn't do. Or how do I put it? If it didn't do, it would probably be more performant. So yeah. So is this a new use case for components? I mean, React, I'm not really from the React world, or not really into it, but I've seen some I don't know if you could say add-ons in React, but some packages that provide weird rendering React components. Like you have this React Blest package. Blest is essentially a library to render UI into a terminal. So they created React Blest, which basically renders components into the terminal. That is not DOM at all. Or you have React 3GS as well. So in the React world, because it's, from my understanding, because it's so bound to the virtual DOM, they don't actually care what ultimately gets rendered. I don't know if we can do this in the Ember components right now. I believe we can't do, but it would be awesome if we could. So we can already do this like I showed to you, but there's always that little catch in your DOM. So yeah, like my favorite writer of all times, your fellow New Yorker. How many of you knew that Isaac Asimov was a New Yorker? Not many, right? You knew. So yeah, the most exciting phrase to hear in science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not Eureka, but that's funny. So yeah, that's funny. So thank you a lot. Thanks for this amazing conference. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, lots of questions.
Hey, Miguel.
So.
Hey, great talk.
Thanks.
So I have a lot of questions, but I'll just ask one.
Sorry, I'm not affiliated with the Democratic Party. Is that?
That's not going to be my question.
Okay. Sorry.
So you talked a lot about composability, using nearest of type in order to get components to talk to each other. We have contextual components now, which in some use cases could also solve that problem of making kind of smart interactions between components. And then there's still some missing pieces that your add-on, helps solve. We don't have the ability to like use the splat operator to pass through all the arguments for a component.
We don't.
To children, or we don't have the ability to capture a block, which I think your add-on does. So contextual component solves some of the composability issues. Your add-on addresses some other ones. Have you thought about what should end up back in Ember in terms of like which, now we have kind of lots of different ways of solving a similar problem. Have you thought, I'm just curious your thoughts on like which part of these should stay in an add-on, which parts are missing from core Ember? Because I think there's some of the missing composability pieces could help the ecosystem.
So that's always the question, right? You want some new thing, and core developers say, make an add-on, and I agree. Well, I think some of these issues should be addressed in Ember, like the little catch, at least. So that little catch is like something I don't think I can do anything about. I'm pretty sure I can't do anything about with public APIs. So that's at least one of the things that I believe Ember should address. So the other of the, basically those three problems, I think it's not bad they live in an add-on. Not many people will need this. So unless it's really easy, one thing that would be very helpful is to have a new hook. So I wouldn't have to do all sorts of bookkeeping. If you go into the add-ons code, it's pretty scary. So I'm glad we have tests because that hook would also be helpful. But other than that, I think it's just fine to live in an add-on. I don't mind it. Many people won't need this functionality at all. But good question.
Hey, I was just wondering, did you measure performance for the WebGL example? Like, do you think it'd be possible to make games in Ember?
I didn't. But is that a challenge? So the short answer is I didn't. The long answer, I don't. The only possible performance bottleneck I can see is that little catch, because we all know that accessing the DOM is slow, right? And other than that, it's pretty much basic. Like you just access an array and invoke for its children, kind of call a function in its children. There shouldn't be any performance issue there. So I think yes, you can. So Ember is so data-driven. We all like writing data-intensive applications in Ember. I can imagine writing really cool visualizations, mixing both those worlds. So I don't see any problem with that. Uh-oh.
So you set up did insert parent. When you do did insert parent, that would mean that you have access to the child. Did you do anything to protect against the Glimmer backtracking re-render in part of that?
Yeah. So bad things can happen if you render depending on your children. That's it. So bad things can happen. The thing is that we don't care about DOM in these cases. So nothing bad will happen, right? So you're in the WebGL case, children can change all they want because we're not touching the DOM anywhere. So Glimmer shouldn't complain about that. Was that the question?
Yeah, so, okay, cool. Let's talk more later. I'm curious.
Sorry.
Thanks, Nathan. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.